Hello, hello. I am Karen Jean-François, and this is the Women in Data podcast. A podcast where every other week I interview some of the most inspiring women working in data. They discuss how data is used in various industries, share their knowledge and experience in the field, and equip you with tips to help you overcome challenges on your career and feel great. Let's get straight to it. Hi everyone, this is Cecilia here and I'm with Karen. We are doing a co-hosted episode, which honestly is one of my favorite things to do. It's my favorite too, and I feel like the listeners love it as well because they're the ones they download the most, they're the ones they listen to the most, so I'm very excited that they like it. Fabulous. I love it that people like to hear us talking about anything. Great. So let's get into it. I think this episode is quite interesting because we started having a conversation about it and we thought, well, why don't we put this in a proper podcast instead? And I think it started when we were talking, there's been so much change for me, at least in the past years or 3 years. My lifestyle has changed a lot. For example, working from an office, commuting every day to working from home. And I'm obviously not the only one on this, but I think that everyone is feeling a little bit of the weight of those changes. And we thought that we should bring this up to the podcast, share how, we manage a different type of stress and what are our best tips and how we actually work around it, or what worked for us or what doesn't work, because it's not all the same for everyone, right? Yeah, I wanted to say I love how you're feeling the stress from the accumulations of all the changes that happened in the last few years. And I can totally see that the last few years have been a lot worse for me as well in terms of working from home, getting used to new habits. I feel like stress has been part of my life since I was born. When you think about people from the Caribbean, everybody's going to think about someone super chilled, slow, listening to reggae. Most of the time, that's what they think about. And then there's me. I think everyone has preconceived ideas, but it's not necessarily what is happening. And I know that for me, for example, whilst I was putting this episode together, I realized that the stress or the mindfulness means different things to different people, and how we manage our own stress works for me, but is not necessarily going to work for you. There's been some changes, obviously, because of work, but I've also had an injury last year. So I also had to rethink on how I was going to cope with the stress of the day to day. And I really needed to change on that. I hear you. It's true. Everybody is different. I think for me, something that when we came about with the idea of this episode, initially I was quite skeptical about it. And for the same reason, you know me, when I get obsessed with something, I start reading about it, then I get discipline is my strength and also my biggest weakness at the same time. I find so much pressure to actually do self-care things sometimes. So, you will go and talk to someone and then they're going to say, oh yeah, I meditate every day. And then because everybody does it a different way, you're always going to go and think, oh my gosh, I wish I could show that I could do that. So all the meditating every day, doing journaling, all the breathing exercises and all these things. Over the years, I've tried so many things, but always being thinking at the back of my mind, I'm not doing it right. Why is it that I'm still stressed? Why is it that this person can sit and meditate for 15 minutes every single day and I can't do it? And then just like you, I realized actually this doesn't work for me. I need something else. So I've been exploring a bit around what works for me has been quite helpful. So a lot of pressure on us to think that we're not doing it right. Social media is not helping as usual. So yeah, in the end, I'm really keen to have this conversation because hopefully that will help. At least if someone has to take something out of it, is to understand that, if someone does something and it doesn't work for you, then that's okay. Just find your own way. I'm just going to put a parenthesis there because you're talking about social media, but you don't even have Instagram. I do. And it's awful. It's an awful thing to have. I can't get it out of my phone. And it really annoys me. So yes, no, you don't have pictures of people in bikinis in LinkedIn. Thank God. I think you're absolutely right in the trying to find techniques of what works for you and what doesn't. And, not doing it right, it's not doing it right for you. You're absolutely right. The 15 minutes of everyone sitting down and meditate. Oh my God, I can't think of anything worse to do. But I know that I have also tried everything under the sun to find mindfulness and de-stress and, all of those things. And sometimes very hit and miss. I know I've tried, breathing exercises and body scans. Yeah, I'm not very good at that. However, give me my dog and let me go out for a walk for an hour. Oh my God, I'll come back. I'll be a different person.
Yeah.
So that definitely works for me. Last year, like I said, I had an injury and I had a really hard time because that meant that I think at the end it was for about 5 months, I couldn't do any kind of exercises because I was just waiting to be operated and stuff like that. And it was awful. I couldn't focus. I didn't sleep well because I didn't have an outlet, an output of energy. And it just made me crazy for a little bit. And I think everyone around me.
Yeah, I think from that perspective, you and I are quite similar because releasing stress comes from movement, I think. So both of us from that perspective, the same. So yeah, if I don't go running, I got injured last year. Not as bad as you, but I also had an injury and I couldn't run, and same, impossible to sleep.
Running, I've tried several times. I'm too much in my head. That's my problem. I can't be thinking whilst I'm doing my exercises, you see. So I always go for the hardest things like, Ashtanga yoga or CrossFit. I mean, seriously, the girl has a problem. But it's whatever works for you. And, I know that, for example, I've tried to take my partner with me to CrossFit. Bless him. It was always a no. I still have hope, but I don't think he'll ever come. But that's what works for me. And then when I do it, first of all, I come out of it and I have this dopamine hit. It's like, oh my God, I can do anything today. Oh, I'm so excited. But then, without doing anything for 5 months, I was going really crazy. But now I'm back into my routine. I feel like I'm back in my groove and I'm such a happier person for it. And everyone around me, again, is happier for it. So I think what is also important here is just to make sure you make it a habit. Like you put in the time, and it's hard. It's really hard to sometimes set time aside, if it is at lunchtime to take the dog for a walk, to force you to get out of your machine and not be working for 20 minutes. Or if it is to go and do your yoga practice in the morning or your CrossFit or whatever it is. But just make sure you set that time aside, and that's a non-negotiable because it's your health at the end.
I want to say easier said than done, Cecilia.
I know, it's so hard.
I just love that you can go for a walk at lunchtime and you have the amazing cutie Bobby that helps you with that because you have to take her out. But you can't imagine the amount of times where I said, I will go for a walk before work or at lunchtime and it never happened. So now we're recording. Now it's Friday. So now it's Friday. We're recording. I went out on Monday evening with a friend. And then on Wednesday afternoon, I realized, I haven't left the house since Monday evening. So
that's not very good.
No. And I'm very conscious of it. I know I need to get out and all these things, but then I think one of the problems I have is when I'm focused, I get so laser focused on something. It's like the whole world disappears around me and I'm doing that, which is great when you work in data, but it also means that I spend a hell of a lot of time sat at my desk doing stuff.
I fully understand that because that's how I do it too. I've had several times my partner come and like, hello, excuse me, dinner time. Let's do it. And, it's not normal, but I think it's also part of the data world is that you get stuck into it and it's very hard sometimes to get out. But then, you need to find perhaps also triggers to change it. Fine. Not everyone can have the most amazing dog, Bobby, around them. But, if it is like, your partner or a friend that gives you a call once in a while and you do the same for them, you need to find different, I guess, different options.
I think if you're like me and you're struggling to get out of the house and are always finding an excuse, things that work is, as you said, so if you have a friend that I think being committed to doing something is key. So going for a walk, I'm only committing to myself. I'm never going to do it. But if we say, oh, Cecilia, I have to meet you at 6:30 in London Bridge, I will be at 6:30 in London Bridge, even if I was very focused before. So I find that adding these kind of things in my week has helped a lot. Something I tried and failed miserably at. I remember laughing about that with Michelle Hall last time. You know, sometimes you have softwares that will block your laptop after a while. So you can say, oh, after 2 hours, you block the screen so that I can't do anything anymore and I have to go for a walk. That does not work because I will tell you why. You can snooze, you can snooze the block. So yeah, if you're stubborn like me, maybe don't try that. But if you have a bit,
I have to say, I don't think that would work for me either. I think it would drive me mad. You know, when you're like in the middle of a query trying to figure out something, the code is giving you some errors and you're in the middle of it and then it blocks. It would drive me insane. I would throw the laptop away.
broken laptop. Well, that works for a break as well.
Passion.
But yeah, so you know how you are talking about routines and habits. I think a really good book for that is Atomic Habits. I think I've recommended it already. Can't recommend it more. It's really good. It's got loads of different techniques. Just don't get too wrapped up into I mean, for me, if I start doing something, I have to do it perfectly. So if I have the habit, I start tracking them and all these things. And I feel like it gets a bit too much sometimes.
I understand.
So we talked a bit about self-care techniques and we talked about, walking the dogs and putting not meetings, but catch-ups with people. How do you actually manage your stress, Cecilia? So in terms of at work, I feel like there is always a lot of demand on data professionals, but do you have anything that works for you?
I don't know if we should be sharing this, but I hope that nobody ever sees the WhatsApp conversation between Karen and I. Because we have both moments where we go, oh my God, this thing happened. Ooh. and I think maybe sometimes just having an outlet of that sort, just like, it's not going to solve my problem. I just need someone to listen to my moan for a minute. That's it. And then I'm good. I get very overwhelmed very quickly. I've now understood that I'll read the first time the brief, let's say, of a new task or whatever it is, and I'll get overwhelmed. So I close it and I come back in 5 minutes and it already feels much better. But I know that it's me. Now I know that the first time I read something, I go, oh my God, this is too big. This is enormous. I'll never be able to. And this is my, inner saboteur. Speaking a bit too loudly. So now I know how to manage it. I just like, okay, I had my first panic of the day and now I will close it and then I'll come back and it will look a little bit better. And then by the time I come back on the second time, I can see how I can split it into different tasks. And that already makes my heart calmer. And this is how I usually manage, when there's too many things coming in at once.
I guess breaking things down is very important, but I love that you really learned to identify these moments where you're thinking, okay, this is me going crazy about something that I know I can do. Let me just walk away from the screen a bit and come back, and identifying when you're getting overwhelmed. And the science for that is very key, I guess. That's when we're talking about mindfulness and meditation and all these things, is being able to notice, okay, my stress level is starting to rise now. Before it gets too late, let me take a step back. I like that.
What about you? How do you do it?
I get very aggressive when it comes to prioritizing things. And that's because it gets overwhelming very quickly. But I think it's something I brought with me from athletics. I realized I can't do everything. So if I want to do something else, and also, you know me, I like to start loads of different projects and all these things. I always have loads of ideas and I've had to learn to live with these things. So what I do is when there is something that comes in that's new, either coming from me, coming from someone else, very often it comes from me. But at work also, you always have stakeholders that come and say, oh, I would love to have that and all these things. So it's about having this list of these are the things I'm working on. This is why they are prioritized. And then looking at the list of what I'm working on right now or what I'm doing for fun right now versus what's coming in new and thinking about if this comes in, what goes out, and then finding out, is it worth putting it in for this to be able to go out? So it's really a one in, one out kind of thing. And one moment where I did not do that was when I started the podcast. So I used to bake a lot. We didn't know each other at that time. I used to bake a lot. Yeah, it was pre our friendship. I used to bake, and if you ask my partner, he's always like, well, you used to make loads of cakes, do it again. And I'm just like, nope, don't have time, mate. And that's because I didn't think about that I was thinking, oh, podcast, great. I want to do it. I love it. And I did not do it consciously. So baking just went out the window, and baking was for me also a way to manage stress. So once I realized, hold on, I'm not baking anymore. And I thought, oh yeah, it's because the podcast is taking the baking time now. So trying to find a way around that now has been key for me as well. So yeah, the one in, one out thing I find works well when you're very intentional about it.
I like that. I've started doing that at work, like with our team. And because we think, oh, if we have more than, I don't know, 3 projects going on at the same time, for the size of our team, we're like, yeah, no, we can't handle it. So just push it to the next.
Yeah. And you need to be, especially at work, I think you need to be very transparent about this is what I'm working on. Because if people don't know what you're working on, they're always going to come with a small request, that, oh, just a
No,
quick
it's
one.
nothing. It's
Exactly.
nothing. Yeah, no, just a client. Just ask for this. This is not going to take too much time. 3 weeks later, you're still on it.
Exactly. Well, if you say, oh, well, I would love to help you, but if I help you, it means that this is not happening, then you will see that very quickly the conversation is going to change.
And I think that you hit the nail on the head there, because I think that if you are communicating with your manager or with your team or whatever it is, like there is just so many hours during the day, and
Hmm.
I can take this other project or whatever it is or request. If you give me another one, that's fine. Do you want me to prioritize this? But that means that that other list I had, something is going to fall off of it, because you can't just do everything at once. So I think it's also, yeah, the communication and making sure that everyone knows where you are, so that they can go, oh, no, we can't ask any more of Cecilia or Karen because they are already taking care of 27 things.
Yeah. Or if they ask, they just take something out and then problem solved.
Exactly. Deprioritize is a thing.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I'm doing now, and that's I totally took it from Squiggly Carriers. So if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, or if you've been following me, you know I'm a Squiggly groupie.
Yeah.
And they had the episode. I think it was 316 on stress management. And that episode was incredible. I remember listening to it on a run, and they were just talking about different techniques to manage stress. And then they were obviously doing things differently. But something that I think it was Helen who said, she said that something she was trying to do was breathing exercises. So we know that breathing exercises, it's really good to help release stress. But when she's stressed, she can't stop and breathe because her brain is all over the place, and then she just doesn't do it properly, and it's frustrating. And that means she finds it to be an even more stressful experience. And I was thinking, yes, I have the same feeling. And she said that what she does is she goes and exercises. So she has to physically release the stress by moving, and then she sits and breathes. And that was a life-changing tip for me because I'm exactly the same. I would go for a run, for a walk, mainly runs, because just like you say, your brain goes all over the place. If I'm walking, that's it. But running, I can focus. So I go do the run, and I will come back and I'll be like, okay, now I'm not panicky anymore. I can breathe.
Hmm.
So that works quite well for me.
But I wonder if it's not, coming back to what we were saying before, just step out of that environment where you are that is giving you the stress, and then coming back to it, and if it is breathing, running, walking the dog, then you come back to it and your mind is clearer. I mean, how many times have I had problems with my code and then I come back, I'm like, oh, that's obvious. Look at that. After I come back, from half an hour walk with the dog. It happened.
It's funny because code, as soon as you step out, you find the solution. As soon as you turn around and ask someone for help, you find the solution. It's magical.
It's a magical thing, isn't it? I thought it was just me.
And so when it comes to work, have you found stuff that works in terms of getting support around you?
I think when it comes to work, I think we already touched on it a little bit, but I know that in my workplace, what has been working really well for us at the moment is that we are clearly communicating what we are working on, what the priorities are, and showing, A plus B, this is how much we can take at once. And there's other things that came in, other projects that came in, other priorities. So then it's afterwards also communicating with, the senior leadership team and saying, right, which one is the priority here, so that we focus on that, so that we can make things move. And funnily enough, things have been moving really nicely. And because we now have a team and we're all working together and we're helping each other, and it's fabulous. There's so many things are just going in a very smooth rhythm, and it's so lovely to see. So I think there's also that. And it's also, I've had a couple of times where I had to say to my boss, hold on, sorry, I need to raise my hand here. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. There's too many things happening. And I think that by communicating that and communicating with your team, it can only make it better. So I think having an environment where you have a no judgment zone and open communication just makes it's a whole different vibe. And yes, I understand that I'm very, very lucky, and sometimes it's not the same lovely environment that you are.
But that shouldn't be down to luck, though. It's just having a safe environment to work in and being able to openly share when you're struggling is a must. I mean, it shouldn't be oh, I'm lucky I have this environment. I feel like everywhere should be like that. What a shame.
Yeah, no, you're right. I shouldn't feel lucky, but we also know that there is some very...
But yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't feel lucky. I'm saying like there is something wrong with organizations where it's not like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so I have that. I think this helps me a lot in my day to day. And I know that there's a lot of companies that are doing a lot of, sharing mental health resources. I know that I have, for example, with my company, we have Headspace. I mean, because sometimes it's not necessarily obvious which tools you can get with your company. So you kind of need to dig in a little bit, talk to other people in your company, the HR team. I don't know. There's always things, I guess.
And don't forget to call your friends for a good moan.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess we covered quite a lot. So we talked about, I love how some of our mechanisms are the same, but we also have very different ones. So we both practice Ashtanga. You're going to the CrossFit. I will never step foot in the CrossFit room, but you will never go for a run.
I will take you to one.
No, thank you. I love my knees.
Says the runner.
All right. Well, I hope that was helpful to someone. And then if you have any other coping mechanisms that we haven't, or not necessarily coping mechanisms, but tips to release stress or have more self-care techniques that you would like to share, feel free to comment and also share with us on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm open to new ways of coping with it. As much as I've tried everything, but I can try something else.
1 in, 1 out, remember?
Oh God. Yes. No more. No, but I feel like I've gotten to a good rhythm now. We're good. Thank you, Karen.
All right. See you.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Women in Data podcast. We will be back in a couple of weeks with a new guest. Until then, if you have 2 minutes, it would be great if you could leave us a rating or a review, as it helps not only to make the podcast more visible, but also to enhance the content. If you don't want to miss the next episode, follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We are also on LinkedIn. And if you wish to, you can even register to the community for free. All you have to do is head to womenindata.co.uk. Have a great day!